We live in a world on a knife edge. One wrong move and the unthinkable could happen. Nuclear war. It's a chilling thought. When bombs drop, survival is all that matters. Food, water, shelter, gone in an instant. Modern infrastructure will collapse. Imagine the panic and chaos. This isn't a movie, it's potential reality. Some states are more dangerous due to geography and population. These places will face deadly radiation and violence. California, the Golden State, home to Hollywood dreams and Silicon Valley innovation. But in a nuclear fallout scenario, those dreams could quickly turn into nightmares. Evacuating megacities like Los Angeles and San Francisco would be like trying to evacuate a beehive during a forest fire. California's coastline bristles with naval bases, prime targets in a nuclear war. If bombs fall, the fallout won't be confined to those bases. Add earthquakes, wildfires, and droughts. Surviving the initial blast will be the least of your worries. Water and food will be scarce. Desperation can make people do desperate things. Trust no one. Rely on your instincts and never give up. New York City, the city that never sleeps. Well, in a nuclear fallout, it might just wish it could. This concrete jungle with its towering skyscrapers and teeming millions would become a death trap faster than you can hail a cab. Evacuation? Forget about it. The bridges and tunnels would be clogged with panicked masses, the streets would be gridlocked, and then there are the landmarks. The Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, Times Square. These iconic symbols make New York a target, plain and simple. And when those bombs hit those skyscrapers, they'll become giant radioactive tombs, trapping radiation within their steel and glass cages. Finding shelter underground will be crucial, but even then, you'll be fighting tooth and nail for every inch of space. Water and food will be more valuable than gold. Disease will spread like wildfire. This won't be survival of the fittest. It'll be survival of the luckiest. Texas, the Lone Star State, known for its wide open spaces and even bigger spirit. But in a nuclear fallout, that spirit will be tested like never before. We're talking about a state with a massive military presence, from Fort Hood to Fort Bliss. These bases would be prime targets, turning the heart of Texas into a radioactive wasteland. And it's not just the military bases. Texas is an energy powerhouse, and those oil refineries dotted across the landscape, they'd become infernos, spewing toxic smoke into the atmosphere. Imagine a nuclear winter with a side of black rain. Not a pretty picture. Then you've got the cities, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, millions of people all scrambling for the same dwindling resources. Water will be scarce, temperatures extreme, and the lawlessness, well, let's just say the Wild West will look tame compared to what'll go down in post-apocalyptic Texas. Chapter 4, Florida Paradise Lost, Florida, the Sunshine State, famous for its beaches, theme parks, and retirement communities. But after a nuclear blast, let's just say it'll be more like the fallout state. Imagine this, hurricanes, already a constant threat, now whipping up radioactive seawater, creating toxic storms that'll strip the flesh from your bones. And the humidity, the air will be thick with it, heavy with radiation, making every breath a gamble. Then there's the population density. Cities like Miami, Tampa, Orlando, they're packed tighter than an alligator's jaws. Evacuation routes? Limited, to say the least. The peninsula becomes a trap, with the ocean on 3 sides and nowhere to run. And those idyllic beaches? They'll be the first to get hit by the radioactive tides. Remember what I said about desperation? It brings out the worst in people. Chapter 5, Illinois, Windy City Fallout. Illinois, the land of Lincoln. Home to the mighty Chicago, a city of steel and grit. But in a nuclear world, even the toughest city can crumble. Chicago, with its dense population and strategic location, would be a prime target. Imagine the chaos as millions try to flee, trapped by gridlocked highways. And then there's the weather. Illinois winters are brutal, and in a nuclear winter, deadly. Finding shelter and scavenging for food and water will be paramount. With scarce resources and radiation, every decision is life or death. The Great Lakes would become a radioactive nightmare, poisoning water. The famous Chicago wind will spread fallout, turning the heartland into a wasteland. Chapter 6, Virginia, Old Dominion, new dangers. Virginia, a state steeped in history, home to the founding fathers and the birthplace of American democracy. But in a nuclear fallout, history won't offer much protection. Its proximity to Washington, D.C. is a curse, as the nation's capital would undoubtedly be a primary target. The fallout would spread like a radioactive wildfire, engulfing Virginia in its deadly embrace. Then there are the military bases. Virginia is practically littered with them, from Norfolk Naval Base to Quantico. These strategic assets would be magnets for nuclear strikes, turning the Tidewater region into a radioactive inferno. And don't forget the population centers. Richmond, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, millions of people all vying for the same limited resources. Water, food, shelter. These will become the new currency, and people will do unspeakable things to secure them. Nevada, land of casinos, bright lights, and the searing heat of the Mojave Desert. But in a nuclear fallout, those bright lights would go out, and the desert would become even more unforgiving. Las Vegas, the city of sin, would become a city of struggle. The Strip, once a beacon of excess, would be stripped bare, its glitz and glamour replaced by desperation and despair. And it's not just Vegas. Nevada is home to Area 51, Nellis Air Force Base, and the Nevada Test Site, all prime targets in a nuclear conflict. The fallout from those strikes would blanket the state, turning the desert into a radioactive oven. Water, always a precious commodity in the desert, would become more valuable than gold. Those who control the water will control life and death. Trust will be a luxury no one can afford. In the Nevada wasteland, it'll be every man, woman, and child for themselves. Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, home to the Liberty Bell, Independence Hall, and a whole lot of history. But in a nuclear fallout, history won't save you. Pennsylvania's dense population centers like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh would be overwhelmed in the aftermath of a nuclear attack. The infrastructure would crumble, transportation would grind to a halt, and panic would spread like wildfire. The state's numerous nuclear power plants, while providing energy in normal times, would become ticking time bombs in a fallout scenario. A meltdown at any one of these facilities would release a catastrophic amount of radiation into the environment, rendering vast swaths of the state uninhabitable. Washington, the evergreen state known for its lush forests, towering mountains, and the bustling metropolis of Seattle. But in the aftermath of a nuclear attack, that emerald beauty would be choked by ash and fear. Seattle, with its iconic Space Needle and thriving tech industry, would be a prime target. The blast would shatter the skyline, sending shockwaves across the Puget Sound. The city's proximity to major military installations like Joint Base Lewis McChord and Naval Base Kitsap would make it a strategic target, increasing the likelihood of a direct hit. The state's reliance on its delicate ecosystem for food and water would backfire, as radiation contaminated the water supply and poisoned the land. The Cascade Mountains, normally a source of awe and recreation, would become treacherous barriers, isolating communities and hindering any hope of escape. Hawaii, the Aloha State, paradise on Earth. But in a nuclear world, paradise would become a prison. This island chain, isolated in the vast Pacific Ocean, would be cut off from the world, left to fend for itself in the wake of a nuclear attack. Pearl Harbor, a stark reminder of America's vulnerability, would once again be a target. The devastation would ripple outward, impacting not just the military base, but the entire island of Oahu. Hawaii's dependence on tourism and imports would become its Achilles heel. With supply lines severed, food and medicine would quickly dwindle. The tropical climate, a blessing in normal times, would become a curse, fostering disease and decay. Surviving a nuclear fallout is a harrowing challenge, and these states pose significantly higher risks. The threat is real, and the stakes are higher than ever. Preparation, awareness of local risks, and proactive planning are essential for minimizing threats. We've covered some of the most dangerous states in the event of a nuclear attack, but remember, nowhere is truly safe. Understanding the challenges these locations pose can help individuals make informed decisions and improve their chances of survival. Knowledge is power, and in a post-nuclear world, it might just be the only power that matters. Prepare, adapt, survive. That's the name of the game now.